welcome to our episode 3, part 1 of Everything in Operations. So my name is Guillaume Rocher. I'm a Dynamics 365 analyst with Azure Group. And today, as the title says, we're going to be looking at part 1 of operations. And I'm very happy to be joined with Taruna.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Cherna. I'm the SMB BizOps lead at Microsoft Canada. So I'm here just to support you, walk you through the journey of ProBark manufacturing today. So during the first episode, we saw the journey of sales and marketing through the lens of Julie and Sally. And so Sally, being a new employee, she was able to sell 12 new chairs, which basically gave a lot of insights for Julie to work with her marketing team to start a sales strategy. That strategy was so successful that now Sally's team was able to close multiple deals, and the operations team needs to adjust their inventory, raw materials, and their whole manufacturing process because they now have to produce over 850 items. And so we'll walk you through what the journey looks like in the back end for that. So for this demonstration, we are bringing in Medzi and Sami. Medzi is our supply chain manager and Sami is our warehouse manager at ProBark Manufacturing. And so their story, obviously, it begins with the notification that they have much more items to actually fulfill. And so their forecasting was insufficient and they don't have enough chairs in stock to be able to meet the new demand. And so together they're going to be working in adjusting their orders, adjusting the materials that they need, and also dealing with vendor management, broken items and returns, warehouse configurations, and item shipment. So I'll pass it on to Guillaume to share more.
So we're going to be seeing a lot of really cool features. Can't get into all of them, else we would be here for hours. But as you can see on the picture, we're going to be touching on some of these today. And if you don't find the features that you were looking for in this episode, make sure you look at part 2 and part 3 of the operations episodes. There are going to be more focus on manufacturing, on project management, on service management, and all these other features. So today we're going to be looking more on the operations, so vendor management, item management, and warehouse configurations.
And so Medzi works in operation, and his job is to handle basically ProBark's supply chain. And so he's notified that the volume of sales had increased, and so he's going to be working through his inventory to fulfill all of those orders. And so the production team will need to manufacture more items, and they don't have enough raw materials. And so Medzi decides to contact their suppliers to order the missing material to be able to produce those chairs.
So here Medi can use a lot of really cool features. One of the most important ones I'd say is the blanket purchase order. So the blanket purchase order, it basically allows you to prepare how many orders you want from a certain vendor, so you can then immediately create those orders from the blanket order, and you'll basically have all these purchase orders, and as they arrive, as you process them, as you post them, then you'll have them be updated. So this blanket purchase order allows you to keep track of them. Additionally, you can do all of the other features similar to the sales documents, so making quotes and seeing all the other relevant statistics from there.
And so when Medzi called the supplier, he realized that the supplier didn't actually have enough supplies to be able to fulfill the order. And so Medzi goes back and understand who is the best next vendor so that he can order all of the items that are needed. And alternative vendors, item stats, and master item infos are all kind of shown through Business Central so that he can have a seamless experience finding the supplies and the raw material elsewhere.
That's absolutely right, Taruna. We have so much information at our disposal. So of course you can see from the item vendor, if you look at the pictures, you can just simply go into the purchases for a certain item and see all the vendors that are selling it, at what price. You can look into your sales and discounts. And on the second picture, I've made a condensed picture with sort of some of the menus here, and it's really overwhelming. We had to put boxes just to highlight some of the features. There's so much you can do, but you can look at your purchases, prices and discounts. You can look at the availability of certain materials based on the lead times of those vendors. You can see the items by locations if you have several warehouses. So there's really so many features that Medi can use here to make sure that he gets the best price from all of his vendors, to make sure that he has the right amount of stock available, and that he knows exactly when it'll be arriving. So there's just so many features in the item master that's going to help him make the right choices in his purchasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that seamless integration, I think, with having at the tip of your fingertip all of that information and all of the information that's relevant for your business, I think that is such a great user experience for Meedsy and anyone else that uses Business Central. But it's often kind of dispersed in many different systems, or it's just all that knowledge is often trapped in someone's mind. And so Meedsy could have been a completely new worker or someone that's very experienced. The experience would have been the same, and that's because of the data being captured by one business management solution system. And so, absolutely, that's such a great breakdown of the three elements that you've kind of featured, knowing that there's so much more that you can do with Business Central. And so Midzi and Sami, they work together, and there are many different ways of communicating with one another. Of course, Business Central captures all of that data, but they can also communicate through Teams. They can also create workflows to automate some of their processes through Power Automate, or they can even use a Power App as well to be able to exchange that information. And so as Midzi is updating kind of their inventory, Sami, being the warehouse manager, he is getting ready to receive all of that. And so he can obviously decide in different ways of signaling that he's received orders. He can either wait for complete shipments to arrive into the warehouse, or he can also mark them as arrived as shipments come. And so that is very easy to kind of to track it through Business Central. He may or may not notice things that are broken in that shipment, and he may want to put a purchase return order as well so that they don't pay for items that are actually broken. And so Sami, being the warehouse manager, he's really taking care of everything to do in the warehouse once that Midzi has ordered all of that raw material.
And so, as you mentioned, Sammy's taking care of everything in the warehouse, and Business Central actually gives you a lot of flexibility so you can configure locations, which are going to be your warehouse, define rules for those, where you want things to go based on who the vendor is, or are you shipping from there. You can set up so many areas. So if you want things to go for arrival or to storage, or this is the assembly area, this is a quarantine or a quality control area. So you can set all of that up with the relevant processes. You can create bins if you want to keep track of your item location. Say, all the chairs, they go in this bin, all the screws, they go in that bin. So you can really have a very accurate item management throughout your warehouse. Now, some of these features, they might need some more advanced configurations, so advanced warehouse configurations. So do look into those before just trying to do those on your own, because it can get a little bit complex. But there's really rich features that you can draw here so you can have the perfect warehouse for your operations. And as Taruna, you mentioned, one of the really cool things when you're processing those received shipments is the ability to create that return order and say, look, I'm going to need this replaced, and just very efficiently this way, Mehdi back in purchasing and supply chain, he can know that he doesn't have all of the necessary materials and that there's a new shipment coming in, so he won't have all of it. And just this communication of information is extremely efficient, extremely relevant, and makes sure that everybody always has the best information when they're making their business decision.
And so, thanks to the warehouse configuration, Sami knows exactly where he can kind of stock things. He can also choose various ways to make sure that he's up to date with all of his zones and everything else. And there are different ways to do that in Business Central. One of that is to do this through serial numbers and for his bins to ensure that he can accurately keep track of all of the items. And so, seeing that some of the items are required for the manufacturing site, he now issues a move order for the required bins through the serial number that was configured to that bin, and then that will be transported over to the stock area in order to be manufactured or to be assembled. And so he can also issue the move order from the manufacturing area to the stock area to accurately update their chair stock as well.
So numbering series are actually a really interesting feature. So be careful not to go overboard, as they can get out of hand really quickly in terms of processing power if you have too many of them. So use them when needed, of course, but you can set them up for everything you want in your warehouse. So receiving orders, return orders, movement documents, whatever you need. Every document in Business Central can be assigned a numbering series that's very flexible, customizable however you want. So always have the document tracing so you know exactly what's going on inside your operations. And one of the things you can configure, as Taruna mentioned, is the movement of your goods. So everything that's from picking orders to, put away, do you want to move them? And so you can really keep track of everything you're doing. And this allows you to make sure that nothing gets lost in your warehouse. So in terms of making sure you have the right inventory count. So as Taruna mentioned, moving things to production, well, they're not assembled yet, but they're not in inventory either. And then moving them from manufacturing back to inventory and saying, okay, starting from now, they should be counted. So this is all very important. So you always have the most accurate information. And in this day, we know that information is extremely valuable. So definitely bank on that.
And so Meidzi now invoices their vendors. And so with a simple click, Business Central automatically creates all the necessary documents that he would need. And so he can see everything regarded to the posted purchase invoices. He can easily access all the related entries that need to be created. For instance, if the item ledger changes or the general ledger entries change, he's able to do that, of course. And so Meidzi can also easily print all of those invoices. He can send it to the customer by email as well. And then all of that, of course, is kind of done from the same UI. And so it's not necessarily opening all of these different systems. It's basically done from one single point of system.
And so this really, the processing of these documents is just really efficient because, as you mentioned, you can choose whether you have received it. Do you want to pay your vendors now? Do you want to pay them afterwards if that's your company policy? You can choose all this flexibility, just as we covered a bit in the sales order. So it's kind of the same type of document. And you can always see the related documents. So as you mentioned, Taruna, you can go, and that's the bottom right picture on the screen. You can go see everything that was printed. So this will automatically post to all of your accounting books, so you can, financially, you have all the most accurate end of the line information. So we changed this much in inventory, we made this much in sales, these are the costs that are posted. So you really be able to track what happened in your books. It can be extremely valuable in terms of accounting, in terms of auditing. So very nice to be able to see what your posted document actually did inside your financial system, right? And of course, as you mentioned, the flexibility to just print, PDF, the Excel integration, all of that, really making sure that whoever is working with these documents has the most flexibility and can fulfill their task the most efficiently without having to juggle a million screens.
And so Midzi is happy to see that he has all the necessary chairs to fulfill the orders. And there's many different ways that he can actually do this. He can choose to, well, first he can choose which shipping partner he wants to leverage, or if the customer has requested a specific shipping partner, he can assign the duty to that shipping partner. And then he can also wait for everything, all the chairs to be completed at once and basically deliver at once, or he could also ship as kind of products were done. And so this usually is kind of done when there's a larger volume to be met. You may not want to keep everything in your warehouse, and so you can kind of configure different processes in your business. And it's very easy to kind of keep track of all of this. And so Meidzi, for the 12 chairs that Sally had sold initially, he kind of chooses to make sure that all the order is completed, and then selects the shipping partner and sends everything over to the customer.
And as you mentioned, in terms of shipping partners, the customer can choose if that's how you've configured your sales process. But otherwise, you can configure your own, and you always get the up-to-date information on that, right? So you can see, what do they offer: 1 day shipping, 2 day shipping, overnight, all these different options. You can see the associated costs, and this can help you with things like knowing when can you promise a product. So this is going back to the sales episode, but when you're going to be making those sales, you're going to be able to see when can you promise that item by, when can you deliver it by. So going back to the salespeople, they're going to be able to say exactly when the customer can receive the product. But going back to the shipping thing, something else that you can really do that's really cool is drop shipping. So of course, if you want to sell an item and you're kind of a middleman, so you don't necessarily handle the item physically in your warehouse, and somebody places an order for that item, well, you can contact your vendor and say, hey, I'd like you to drop ship this for me. And so your vendor, will receive the shipping information of the customer and deliver it directly to the customer, so that you don't actually have to handle the physical good. So this can be really good if you're trying to sell some items that maybe you don't occasionally have, but you just want to avoid the hassle of having to clog up your warehouse with those items. So really cool things. lots of shipping options. And as you can see on your screen, you can configure all these shipping parameters however you want for certain types of purchases, for certain areas, how much time it's going to take. So all this really cool information and a lot of customization. So really that's the name of the game. It's flexibility and customization.
Yeah, and if I can just add on a piece to that, I mean, we are in 2020. A lot of businesses are changing, and drop shipping has become a new strategy for many businesses. And so, what's really cool about Business Central is that you don't need to think about another system, or kind of add on another system because your existing ones are not able to support your new strategy. Business Central really is flexible and it is agile, so that whichever direction that you take, that you may not even have envisioned 5 years ago, that your system, your technology is able to support those changes that your business needs. And if we kind of, there's one learning area that we've kind of experienced in 2020 is that you need agility in your systems. So drop shipping just being one kind of trend that's happening right now, being reassured that Business Central can take care of that. And then of course it just keeps on growing and improving its features and functionalities. I think we've mentioned this previously or not, but we basically release twice a year lots of different features. Obviously, I'll let Group Azure make sure that they talk you through all those features, but there are some really cool ones, and it's just to make sure that we're updating the system to meet the current market demands. So rest assured that if you choose Business Central, that you'll have that support from Group Azure and from Microsoft.
That's very kind words, Taruna. And of course, those updates are always bringing valuable features because they are based on customer feedback. So it doesn't get more agile than that. If there's something that you ever find missing in these products, make sure you voice it because at the end of the day, Microsoft really does want to make the best product they can. And I really think they've achieved this with Business Central.
Yeah, and so I guess least to say, just subscribe to this channel and get notified for the future episodes. Today, we really kind of walked you through high level what the operations can look like. There's so much, as Guillaume has kind of pointed out, there's so many different features that we want to walk you through, but we wanted to give you kind of a general idea of what is possible. And then in future episodes later on, we're going to basically extend some of the features and functionalities that we may not have touched upon or we touched upon really high level here. So yeah, absolutely. Just stay tuned for the next episode.
All right. We'll see you all in part two, where we're going to be digging deeper into manufacturing. So thank you again for taking the time, Taruna. It's always a pleasure to record with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.